Hey, good morning, y'all. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a really great weekend. I hope y'all found somewhere to go to church yesterday and just had a really good time with the Lord. I'm going to get right into it today, and I'm in Matthew chapter 4, and the verse on the devotional is verse 22. I would ask that you read verses 22 through 33 in chapter 14 because it can give you a better picture. For time's sake, I'm not going to read it all, but I will give a quick rundown. But Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 says, Then immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. And so to kind of set the scene of that for you, the feeding the 5,000 had just happened. And you really should read Matthew chapter 14. I'm sorry. Just read the whole thing because it's like one thing happens and it leads to the next and the next, and it's really interesting. It really is. And I mean, if you love to read, read it, okay? But anyways, but 22 through 33, this is when Jesus walks on water. And so but I couldn't get past the part where he made the disciples get into the boat. Okay, he put them in the boat, they went out, and he went up to pray. And when he looks down, they're in the middle of this, whatever it is, the sea they call it. And there's a big storm happening. The waves are tossing the boat around and around. These guys are scared, they're freaking out, a whole thing. And so when I'm reading this, I'm like, he really sent them out there. It's not like he didn't know what was going to happen. And it got me thinking about all kinds of stuff. And y'all, we get really bent out of shape when trials happen. And we do. I mean, I do, you do, we all do. And when the storm starts tossing the boat around, we're freaking out. We're calling on God. Where are you? And he's up here watching us. Just like he looked down there and he saw them. He put them in the boat. He knew he had them. He knew what he had going on. And I mean, it blew my mind. I'm kind of speechless at the moment because it blew my mind because that's us. He said, as long as we are being obedient to God's word and we are in his will. And listen, I've said it once, I'll say it again. What is his will for your life? His will for your life is living by his word. That's his will for your life. Everybody we totally overcomplicate it. What is God's will for my life? Live by his word. That's his will for your life. You want to be in his will? Live by his word and you'll be in his will. Okay? You'll be under his covering in his will if you live by his word. And you can't know what's in his word unless you read it. It all goes together. It just all goes together. I'm like in awe of that today. But y'all, he sends us places and he knows what's going to happen. But all of this is for his glory. How we handle it. You know, there wasn't just one person in that boat and nobody else around. There was a bunch of people in that boat. Only one got out and started to walk towards him. And, you know, we always focus on, Peter didn't have any faith. And I've heard 11 sermons about how we're like Peter and we're not focusing on Jesus and da-da-da-da-da. That's true. I mean, we do that. We do that a lot. But, y'all, he sent them out in the boat. It reminds me of Job when the devil's like, I'm going to and fro. And the Lord's like, hey, how about my servant Job? Y'all, he puts us in things for his glory because it is not all about you. Okay? It draws me back to our Sunday school lesson. It's not about you. And I remember when we were going through everything we were going through with my husband's addiction, and me and the kids were at church. Every time the doors were open, that's what we were doing. And I would lift my hands and I would praise God, and that didn't have a thing in the world to do with me. It was because I knew that was the only place my help was coming from. Okay? It was because I knew that I couldn't depend on all the people standing around me. The only person I could depend on was him. And that didn't have nothing to do with me. But do you know how encouraged people around me would say, it encourages me. It strengthens me in what I'm going through to see you do that. And guess what? It was glorifying God. It had nothing to do with me. The things that we go through, y'all, Other people are drawing strength from them. Other people are getting closer to God in their relationships with Him because of what you're going through. And it should make us stop and think, Lord, am I handling this situation in such a way that it's going to glorify you? Because His strength is made perfect in our weakness. So don't act like, oh, I can't show that I'm weak, or I don't have any weakness. We have a distorted perception of what weakness actually is. And how we should view it is our weakness gives His strength a place to work, a place to shine. And it does, because I have weaknesses. Am I going to tell you what they are? No, that ain't none of your business. But He knows. And I have times where I struggle. We all do. And we all do, period. And that is when we need Him the most. And that is when He can show us who He really is. And, we can go out here and we can tell people everything we read in His Word. And we can quote these scriptures. But until you have lived those scriptures out, until you know for a fact that He is who He says He is, because He has showed up and been faithful to you, until you have been through the worst and seen that He really will turn it around for your good, you can say those words and those scriptures to anybody, but they're not going to go deep down into your heart or anybody else's until they have to walk through them. I would love to be able to say that God will make a way. I would love to be able to say that He will turn it all around for your good, because I know He will. And I can say that, but I would love to be able to say it and you truly believe it. But I don't think you're going to believe it until you have to walk through it on your own. And that's why if somebody ain't walked through it, I don't want to hear nothing they got to say, because they don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know what I'm going through. And I know you feel the same way. Most of us do. If they ain't walked it, I don't want to hear it. It feels like air flowing through, something like that, anyways. But like I said, the storms we face in this life reveal God's glory to us and to others, and we don't like them because they're uncomfortable. So we let me think. His word says that it rains on the just and the unjust, and the presence of God in our lives, our obedience to Him and His word, do not make us exempt from going through things. Just because we're a Christian does not mean that things are going to stop. It doesn't mean things are going to go great all the time. It just means we know where our help comes from. We know who to call on. We know that He's going to do, if He tells us something in His word, He makes a promise, and we are living in His will and we are being obedient, He's going to do exactly what He said He's going to do. Now, all these promises in His word, if we're not doing what we're supposed to do, He's not obligated by anything to do what He promised in His word. You could be out there living like the devil himself. God's not obligated to do anything for you. Now, when you call on His name, and you ask Him to come into your heart, and you confess your sins, and you live for Him, and you're doing His will for your life, does that mean you're going to have it all figured out and perfect? No. But it does mean then He'll honor His promises to you. He's not obligated to do so if you're not doing your part. Technically He doesn't have to at all, but He's God, and He's way better than we ever thought about being, so He's gonna. But anyways, I know I say that a lot, but are you in a storm today? Are things really hard? Does it seem like it's going on and it won't stop and it just keeps going and going, and every time you turn around, something happens again? Guess what? I don't want to sound discouraging, but that is life. In one way or another, that's life. What you have to ask yourself, first of all, it's not going to last forever. Let me tell you that. It is not going to last forever. And that is the truth. It really is. That was always very encouraging to me, to know that there was an end to it. Because before I was saved, I was trapped in a life where it felt like there was no end to it. It felt there was no end to the poverty that I lived in. It felt like there was no end to the bad days I was having. It felt like there was no hope of change for better, ever. And I'm not going to say when I found Jesus, because he wasn't lost. But when I finally got some sense about me and came to Jesus and allowed the Lord to change my life, the possibilities are endless, you guys. I mean, seriously, like the things that he can and will do for you that you can't even comprehend are just mind-blowing. There's a whole other world of opportunity out there. And just because you're going through something right now doesn't mean that opportunity is still not out there. So if you're in the middle of something, pray and ask God, what can I learn from this right now? What would you have me learn from this? Because every time we're going through something, like I said, it's not about us. Okay, yes, we need to grow. We need to learn. We have some fleshly little things in here that need to get worked out. Okay, we need some bad attitudes we need to get rid of. We need some hard hearts that need to be softened. And when we're presented with the trial, that's an opportunity to get it all worked out, guys. It just is. And because I'm gonna tell you, it took years for a lot of ugly stuff to get worked out of me. You know what was going on in our family. Me and the rest of the world could have pointed that finger at my husband and said, "This is all your fault." He might have been completely wrong in everything he did, but the Lord looked at me and said, you got some stuff. And I can't tell you how infuriating it was to know all the things that my husband was doing at the time, for God to point the finger at me and say, all right, we're going to get this cleaned up. But see, I was praying for something. Oh God, I was praying for something. And God couldn't give me that answer to the prayer. He couldn't answer. He could have. But he wouldn't give me that answer to that prayer until I got myself together. Because let me tell you something, if you don't prepare yourself to receive the answer to your prayer, then all you're going to do is flush it straight down the toilet, and it did absolutely no good. And why would God even mess with that? Now, you beg long enough, he might just give it to you just to watch you tear it back up, because you're going to have to come right back to him, and you're going to start over again, and you're going to be walking around in the desert for 40 years. The Israelites, that trip to the promised land was an 11-day trip. That's what I read. How true that is, I don't know. I've never walked it, and you probably haven't either. But they said it was an 11-day trip, and it took them 40 years. Some people didn't even make it in there because they spent the whole time in unbelief and complaining and nagging and carrying on. God literally rained food from the sky for these people. He had clouds with light and protection, and he split the Red Sea, and all these people did was complain and fuss and whine. So what are you doing in your trial? Are you being like the Israelites and going to wind up right back around? Because listen, what about Jonah? He didn't want to go to Nineveh. Okay, all right. And he got out, and he wound up going where he was supposed to go. God ain't playing with you. He ain't playing with nobody. That was one of the things that I know he told me when I was going through my trial. I said, that's it. I'm going to get a divorce. I'm not doing this. And he said, you can, but you're going to wind up right back where you are, whether it be with him or someone else. You're going to wind up right back here, and we're going to be in the exact same place. Why? I don't know. God's God. He's got a plan for our lives, okay? And it would be a lot easier on us if we were obedient to him, obedient to his word, and walked in the will he has for us, okay? So ask yourself today, pray and ask God today, Lord, what would you have me learn during this trial? What are some things I need to work on? What are you trying to show me that I need to do? And then ask him, Lord, please help me to handle this right, so I can be a good example to everyone around me, and that they can see your glory through me and through this trial, because that's what it's really all about. We need to get ourselves off our mind, quit being so selfish about everything we go through and think it's about me, 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 okay? And we need to keep our eyes focused on God. It's not about us. Don't even focus on pray and ask God those things and keep your eyes on Him. And then you won't sink like Peter did. Now we're going to throw that in there. But I love y'all. I hope everybody has a really great day. If you have made it this long in this video, thank you. I really appreciate it. I do. Like, share, comment, follow, share these things. You know, there's people out there, you know, that might really need it, because we all go through stuff, y'all. And I love y'all. I have, if you are on my Facebook, you can find all my links on there. I have TikTok, podcasts, YouTube, the whole deal. Follow me. I love y'all. Have a great day. Bye.